The Jedi Order was nearly destroyed 3 separate times across galactic history. Each purge succeeded by exploiting different weaknesses. The First Purge attacked their philosophy, the Second attacked their trust in the Republic, and the Third attacked their will to survive. Using both Canon and Legends sources, the first extinction occurred in Legends continuity around 3954 BBY during Knights of the Old Republic II. By the time the systematic hunting began, the damage was already done. The Order had been effectively eliminated before the Sith triumvirate even started their coordinated pursuit. The weakness came from the Mandalorian Wars. However, these wars were not what they appeared to be. Kreia identified them as massacres that masked a war of conversion, with Revan step-by-step corrupting the Jedi who followed him. According to writer Chris Avallone, Revan possessed an incredibly powerful mind that could see events beyond the immediate moment, understanding how to turn corruption itself into a weapon against Jedi psychology. Central to Revan's approach was his knowledge of dark-side corruption. He knew certain places in the galaxy had strong dark-side power that corrupted all who walked there, and crucially, he knew how to create them. These locations could break the will of the Jedi by promising power and turning them to darkness, transforming war into a systematic weapon against Jedi stability. Malachor V became the ultimate expression of this strategy. The final battle created something never seen before. When the mass shadow generator activated, thousands were crushed by gravity and destroyed. To hear the Force over such pain was impossible. One Jedi survived by severing her connection to the Force entirely at the moment of disaster. She carried all of those who fell within her, leaving a wound in the Force. Most critically, this wound represented something entirely new. She was forming bonds and leeching the life of others, which became the teaching of the new Sith, to feed on other Force sensitives. The exile survival method became the template for an entirely new form of Sith power. The Jedi Masters themselves recognized this connection when confronting the exile. They explained these Sith had learned the lesson of Malachor too well, allowing them to prey on Force users and become stronger when Force sensitives were near. The Sith triumvirate studied Malachor and created a hunting technique highly effective at wiping out Force-sensitive beings. With the Jedi already weakened, the triumvirate launched their hunt. The KOTOR II opening crawl describes evil Sith spreading across the galaxy, hunting down and destroying remaining Jedi Knights. This wasn't random killing, but a planned pursuit across every system. The scale of destruction was unprecedented. Darth Nihilus consumed all life on the planet KOTOR, wiping out nearly 100 Jedi Masters who had gathered there in a desperate attempt to coordinate a response, with only one surviving the massacre. Across the galaxy, surviving Jedi found themselves constantly fleeing. The Prima Guide describes the last known Jedi narrowly escaping a deadly ambush, clinging to life aboard a battered freighter. Even knowledge of surviving Jedi had become rare, and the hunt reduced the Order to individuals whose locations were largely unknown. The 3 Sith Lords served different functions in this hunt. Darth Nihilus represented pure consuming power, with Avallone describing him as the ultimate antagonist who embodied hunger and consumption as his sole purpose. Darth Sion handled direct combat, identified by the Prima Guide as the Lord of Pain, his body held together through rage and suffering alone. Darth Traya, the Betrayer, served as the strategic mind behind their operations. Despite internal tensions, these 3 cooperated effectively to hunt Jedi across the galaxy. Yet as they hunted, the Jedi Council's response revealed fatal strategic errors. Rather than mounting coordinated resistance or gathering their remaining strength, the Masters fragmented into hiding. Master Vrook hid on Dantooine. Master Kavar stayed near Duxun. Master Zez Kael concealed himself on Nar Shaddaa, and Master Atris built a hidden academy beneath ice on Telos, hoarding knowledge rather than fighting. Kreia later condemned their choices, pointing out that each master retreated near sources of dark-side corruption, yet refused to recognize the patterns emerging around them. Even worse, the Council identified the wrong threat entirely. When the surviving masters finally gathered on Dantooine, they focused on the exile rather than the Sith hunting them. They declared she was a breach that must be closed, a wound in the Force that threatened everything. The Council viewed the exile as the primary threat. They feared she would teach others to sever themselves from the Force, not recognizing this might be the only defense against the Triumvirate. For them, institutional purity mattered more than survival. Their solution was punishment rather than strategy. They attempted to sever the exile's connection just as Kreia interrupted, challenging their passive approach. She asked how they could hope to know the threat when they had never walked in dark places or faced war on such a scale. Instead of waiting for their answer, Kreia forced them to experience the disconnection they had intended to impose. She showed them what it meant to see the galaxy through the eyes of the exile rather than through the Force. The Council died not through combat, but through their own chosen punishment, and with them went the last of the Jedi leadership. The First Purge achieved near-total success in eliminating the Order as a functioning institution. Kreia assessed that the Jedi Order had been the heart of sustaining the Republic's sickness, and now that the Jedi were lost, the galaxy would see how long the Republic could survive. The Purge destroyed not just Jedi, but Force knowledge itself. Kreia described how the Sith learned their hunger from the exile, bringing about the end of the Jedi and perhaps all knowledge of the Force. Malachor V remained as a permanent wound, with darkside energy creating terrain of jagged rock spires and treacherous paths, transforming living beings into monstrous forms. The few surviving Force users carried only fragments, scattered across the galaxy without an institutional framework, systematic training, or coordination. Yet, the First Purge ultimately ended when the exile confronted each Sith Lord. By defeating Darth Nihilus, Darth Sion, and Darth Traya, Mitra Surik halted the Triumvirate's hunt and allowed the Jedi Order to eventually rebuild. Still, Kreia's final words pointed to a larger threat. One must go where Revan went, into the unknown regions, where the true Sith wait for the great war that comes. The Triumvirate's purge was merely a prelude to a longer conflict. Thousands of years later, the Jedi made a different mistake. Around 19 BBY, the Order had rebuilt itself into something far more powerful, standing at the height of their influence as generals in the Clone Wars and commanding armies across the galaxy. Yet this strength concealed a fatal weakness. For 3 years, the Jedi served as military commanders integrated fully into the Republic's structure. Revenge of the Sith establishes that the war had left the Republic crumbling under attacks by Count Dooku. The scale of deployment was galaxy-wide. Master Depa Billaba led forces on Kalar. Master Shaak Ti oversaw clone training on Kamino, and Master Pong Krell led forces on Umbara. Jedi spread across thousands of systems with no central defensive position and no way to coordinate once the attack began. The true weapon had been built years before, hidden in plain sight. Tech from Clone Force 99 explained that the Kaminoans implanted chips in clones to modify behavior, manipulating mutations in their DNA. Years later, the truth nearly surfaced. During the Clone Wars, Clone Tup experienced a chip malfunction, causing premature Order 66 execution. When medical droid AZI-3 discovered what appeared to be a tumor blocking neuroimpulses, Clone Trooper 5s investigated further and found all clones had one. The Kaminoans provided cover through Nala Se, who explained these were structural inhibitor chips meant to prevent aggressive behavior, supposedly ordered by Jedi Master Sifo Dyas. When 5s tried warning the Council about the chip's true purpose, Anakin dismissed him, insisting the Chancellor wasn't capable of what he claimed. 5s was killed before providing definitive proof. The Chancellor's cover-up succeeded completely, explaining that his doctors found a parasite that caused the inhibitors to decay. The Jedi accepted this lie entirely, and their investigation ended. The Jedi's trust in Palpatine prevented investigating the one warning that might have saved them. Unbeknownst to the Jedi, the chip's actual function was confirmed through separatist communications. Count Dooku stated it was a preemptive execution of Clone Protocol 66, and Palpatine's confirmation eliminated all doubt. Their plan had gone undiscovered. The clone was dead, and the Jedi still suspected nothing. But the Jedi's real vulnerability wasn't the chips. it was their trust in the Republic itself. While the chips remained concealed, the Chancellor consolidated political power across the Republic. Bail Organa observed that he now controlled the Jedi Council and had appointed governors to oversee all star systems, with Mon Mothma adding that Palpatine had played the senators well and had become a dictator. The Council recognized the danger but moved too slowly. Mace Windu sensed a plot to destroy the Jedi and noted the dark side surrounded the Chancellor, leading Ki-Adi-Mundi to propose that if he didn't give up emergency powers after Grievous's destruction, he should be removed. Yoda warned this path would carry them to a dark place, yet events were already in motion. The final piece fell into place through one Jedi's personal fear. While the Council debated politics, the Sith Lord's seduction of Anakin was precise and targeted. He told the young Jedi the dark side could keep those he cared about from dying. When Anakin asked if it was possible to learn this power, the response was clear: not from a Jedi. The promise was specific to his fear of losing Padme. That fear turned to action when Mace confronted the Chancellor. In the moment Mace prepared to strike down Palpatine, Anakin made his choice and intervened. With Mace dead, the Chancellor offered what Anakin wanted most: the power to cheat death. Anakin pledged himself to Sith teachings and was christened Darth Vader. With Vader turned and the chips activated, the Jedi had no choice. A single directive went to clone commanders everywhere: execute Order 66. The command activated inhibitor chips in every clone simultaneously, overriding years of training, personal bonds, and judgment. The biological response was absolute, and Commander Cody provides the clearest example. Moments before receiving the order, he returned Obi-Wan's lightsaber in a friendly exchange. However, when the transmission came, he immediately ordered troops to blast the Jedi Master off a cliff. Clones who had fought beside him opened fire without hesitation. The scene repeated across the galaxy. Ki-Adi-Mundi, Aayla Secura, and Plo Koon were among the Jedi Masters who fell across dozens of worlds, killed by the clones who had fought beside them moments before. But the worst betrayal happened at the heart of the Order itself. Vader personally led the 501st Legion against the Temple on Coruscant. As the attack unfolded, Bail Organa arrived at the Flaming Temple and witnessed the slaughter led by Commander Appo. Inside, Vader moved through the temple, killing Shaak Ti and entering a room of younglings. Later, when Obi-Wan and Yoda entered, the complete scope became clear. Not even the younglings survived, and one Padawan was killed not by clones, but by a lightsaber. The biological nature of the chips made resistance impossible. In Jedi Fallen Order, a clone's distress revealed he didn't want to follow the orders, yet couldn't stop himself. The canon animated series Star Wars: The Bad Batch demonstrates this further through Tech's explanation that the comm channel was repeating one directive, with Crosshair stating it simply: good soldiers follow orders. The Bad Batch's immunity confirmed the programming was biological rather than voluntary. Tech explained their genetic mutations made them immune, while Echo's torture most likely wiped out his preset modifications. With Order 66 executed, Palpatine moved to consolidate absolute power. He framed the Jedi as traitors before the Senate, declaring that remaining Jedi would be hunted down and defeated. The attempt on his life left him scarred, he explained, and to ensure security and stability, the Republic would be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire. The Senate erupted in thunderous applause at the declaration. Padme captured the moment perfectly. This was how liberty ends, not with resistance, but with celebration. The Republic the Jedi served for 1,000 years became an empire dedicated to their extinction. Meanwhile, Vader completed his final mission by eliminating the Separatist leadership. Palpatine's orders were clear. After killing all the Jedi in the Temple, go to Mustafar and wipe out Viceroy Gunray and other Separatist leaders. On Mustafar, Newt Gunray pleaded that Lord Sidious promised peace, but Vader cut him down mid-sentence. The Jedi who survived found themselves scattered and vulnerable. Saw Gerrera's assessment captured their situation. With the Jedi decimated and the clone army under Palpatine's command, he had control over the galaxy. Master Bilaba's death demonstrated the impossibility of individual defense. Her Padawan Caleb Doom witnessed her final moments as she ordered him to run while overwhelmed by clone fire. Caleb survived and became later known as Kanan Jarrus. The few surviving Jedi attempted a desperate counterstrike. Yoda and Obi-Wan returned to Coruscant after Order 66, with Obi-Wan suggesting they must go back to prevent stragglers from walking into the trap. They changed the temple's beacon from recall signal into a warning, telling any surviving Jedi not to return to the temple. They then discovered the scope through hologram recordings showing Anakin slaughtering Jedi. Their strategic response divided already limited strength. Yoda insisted Obi-Wan wasn't strong enough to fight Lord Sidious. Instead, he told Obi-Wan to use his feelings and find Anakin. Meanwhile, Yoda would visit the new Emperor. The two survivors split up, each facing impossible odds alone. Both surviving Jedi Masters failed their missions. In the Senate chamber, Palpatine used the Force to hurl pods at Yoda and blasted him with Force lightning. Yoda lost his lightsaber, fell hundreds of feet, and was forced to flee. His admission was stark. Into exile he must go, for he had failed. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan's confrontation with Vader on Mustafar ended without finishing the job. After defeating Anakin, Obi-Wan watched in horror as he burst into flames, yet walked away rather than ensuring he wouldn't survive. The two most powerful Jedi both failed when it mattered most. With both Jedi Masters defeated, the destruction was complete. The Order as an institution ceased to exist, and the few survivors went into hiding. Yoda's survival plan was simple: split up the twins, send Luke to Tatooine with Obi-Wan while Bail adopted Leia, then disappear until the time was right. To ensure Vader would never search for them, they made it appear the twins didn't survive. As the Jedi disappeared into exile, Vader's reconstruction paralleled his psychological destruction. When Palpatine told him that Padme had passed, that Vader himself caused it, his scream of rage and grief completed the transformation from Jedi to Sith. The Empire was established immediately with total control: chain codes, planetary travel restrictions, and registration of all people. Vader became the Empire's primary enforcer, spending the next 2 decades hunting surviving Jedi across the galaxy, aided by the Inquisitorius, a group of dark-side agents trained specifically to hunt Jedi. The Grand Inquisitor and his fellow Inquisitors systematically tracked down survivors like Kanan Jarrus and Eighth Koth, ensuring the Purge continued long after Order 66. Despite this relentless persecution, a single hope remained. Yoda told Obi-Wan that in solitude on Tatooine, he would receive training from an unexpected source. Their old master Qui-Gon had learned the path to immortality and would teach Obi-Wan how to commune with him, how to join the Force while retaining consciousness. This training would preserve Force knowledge outside Sith control. More than a century later, history repeated itself. Around 130 ABY in Legends continuity, the Jedi Order had rebuilt from the ashes of Order 66. The scars had faded, and the Order stood strong once more. Yet within 7 years, the galaxy would remember a new tragedy: the Massacre at Ossus. Unlike the first 2 purges shown as they unfolded, the Third Purge must be reconstructed from fragments and survivor testimony. The Jedi walked into this purge believing they were doing the right thing, unaware they were being manipulated into their own destruction. A trap was set nearly 100 years before. After the Yuuzhan Vong invaded the galaxy and were eventually defeated, they were allowed exile on Zonama Sekot. Lingering hatred festered on worlds that had suffered at the Yuuzhan Vong's hands, creating the perfect conditions for manipulation. The Jedi made an alliance with the reborn Empire at Bastion, championing a terraforming project using Yuuzhan Vong biotechnology. Cole Skywalker championed the Ossus project across 100 selected planets, believing it would heal war-torn worlds. Instead, terraforming produced terrible results. Plants became deformed, generating painful body growths on those exposed. Though the Jedi suspected sabotage, the wider galaxy blamed the Yuuzhan Vong. When the Jedi convinced the Galactic Alliance to support the Vong anyway, this decision triggered the Sith Imperial War. Imperial Moffs invoked the Treaty of Anaxis and declared war. The 3-year conflict revealed the Sith had manifested on the Empire's side and sabotaged the terraforming projects. However, the Jedi couldn't prove it, and the political damage was already done. After the Alliance surrendered, Emperor Rowan Fel, the legitimate ruler of this reborn empire, called on the Jedi to surrender and submit to Imperial will as the Imperial Knights had done. The Jedi refused, maintaining they served the Force and would never ally with the Sith. In response, they made a critical strategic error, withdrawing to Ossus and concentrating themselves in one location, exactly where the Sith wanted them. 2 days before the massacre, the Jedi Temple on Coruscant fell. Darth Krayt ordered complete annihilation, and the assault on Ossus came with overwhelming numbers. Multiple Sith warriors converged on the Academy, while stormtroopers fought alongside Sith forces. TIE fighters engaged from above as ground forces attacked simultaneously, creating coordinated pressure from all directions. Multiple warriors converged on Cole Skywalker specifically. As Cole fell fighting multiple Sith, his final command to his Padawan was to protect the younglings. The Jedi Code's first concern became the mechanism of tactical defeat. Cole Skywalker articulated the bind. A Jedi's first concern is to preserve life. When Sazan sensed additional Sith approaching, Cole responded that they would hold the line rather than retreat. Masters prioritized evacuating younglings over mounting counterattacks, meaning individual Jedi faced overwhelming numbers without support. Cade Skywalker witnessed his father fall and attempted to engage the Sith alone. Overwhelmed by rage, he was struck down, and in the moment before apparent loss of consciousness, he manifested Force Lightning. Wolf Sazan felt the dark side touch Cade, though his body was never confirmed among the casualties. The battle ended in complete defeat. Grand Admiral Morlish Veed gave the final report. The Academy had fallen, and the Jedi Order was broken. However, a new crisis emerged from the victory. Darth Krayt revealed himself and declared he was the new Emperor. The true Rowan Fel knew the Sith were coming, smelled the trap, and escaped. This deception created a major split in Imperial loyalty, with the Sith Lord controlling the throne, but the former Emperor posing a continuing threat. The Purge eliminated the Jedi, but fractured the Empire that executed it. Krayt's response was to hunt down survivors while consolidating power. He offered bounties with a specific structure, 10 times more for one alive than one who fell. The goal was conversion rather than elimination. Darth Malady was assigned to engage hunters, transforming the Purge from a single attack into an ongoing campaign of persecution. 7 years later, survivors operated without coordination or hope. The Sith actively attacked any gatherings, making it impossible for the Jedi to organize. When Wolf Sazan convened a meeting to discuss finding Cade Skywalker, multiple Sith warriors interrupted, demonstrating that even 7 years after the attack, the systematic hunting continued. The Purge's most terrible consequence was psychological. Cade Skywalker survived, but abandoned his Jedi identity entirely. He sealed his fighter's ejection suit as the ship exploded, withdrew from the Force, and went into deep meditation. 3 days later, he awoke floating alone above the ruins. When Pirate Rav found him, the young Skywalker lied about being a Jedi. He claimed to know where the treasure was hidden, using his knowledge for survival. He became a bounty hunter, and even his closest associate, Jariah Sin, who hated Jedi, didn't know his captain had been one. His rejection was absolute. When confronted 7 years later, he declared it was slavery, insisting Jedi were guardians trying to police a galaxy that kept turning on them. His assessment was brutal. The Jedi's time was over. Cole Skywalker's Force Ghost revealed the dangerous path his son walked. When the younger Skywalker healed Wolf Sazan during battle, pulling him back from the edge, he had to put one foot on the dark side to do it. It was cold and dark, yet part of him liked it, and even hungered for more. This was dangerous territory for a Skywalker. The precedent was clear. Anakin, the chosen one, became the betrayer. As Cade saw it, he was the biggest reason any Skywalker should avoid being a Jedi. After all, the legacy of Darth Vader continued to affect every generation after. Beyond the psychological destruction, the physical evidence of the Order's fall was equally complete. Physical sites of Jedi culture became monuments to their destroyers. The temple on Coruscant was rebuilt by the Emperor and became the Temple of the Sith, serving as Crate's seat of power. For the scattered survivors, the only strategy that worked was remaining isolated, hiding among ordinary populations while suppressing Force abilities entirely. The political fracture deepened as the years passed. 7 years after the Massacre, Fel retook Bastion and declared himself the true Emperor. Imperial forces fought each other to determine which Emperor commanded loyalty, with stormtroopers turning on fellow stormtroopers. The Purge's political consequences ensured ongoing chaos rather than stable Sith rule. Darth Malaval enforced the elimination policy without mercy. When Lieutenant Kessel suggested allowing enemy stormtroopers to surrender to prevent needless loss of life, Malaval refused. There would be no truce, no surrender, and every last one would be eliminated. The Stormtrooper Corps that once represented unified Imperial power now destroyed itself to enforce Sith control, and the military could no longer trust itself. Meanwhile, an unexpected group preserved what remained of the Jedi legacy. The Yuuzhan Vong on the ruined world gathered what remained of Jedi artifacts, believing themselves honor-bound to defend the Jedi who had championed the galaxy's acceptance of their people. 7 years later, they still protected the ruins as former enemies became guardians of Jedi memory. The Purge left Crate with an unstable foundation. His physical body was failing, with something consuming him from within. He estimated a decade or two before it took him over, yet something more immediate threatened his plans. During the attack, Crate detected something unusual, a murmur in the dark side, a presence in the Force that could draw life back from the edge. The source of this healing was a Jedi, and the Purge's failure to eliminate Cade Skywalker created the central threat to Crate's long-term plans. 7 years later, surviving Jedi believed only a Skywalker could rally survivors and rebuild the Resistance. However, Cade refused this role completely. He used death sticks to dull his Force connection and prevent detection, declaring repeatedly he was not a Jedi and not a Skywalker anymore. The Third Purge succeeded by erasing everything the Jedi were. The Order was broken, survivors scattered, knowledge lost, and culture destroyed. The Jedi could not gather, train, coordinate, or resist. What remained were isolated individuals, constantly hunted and forced to choose between hiding and being found. The Purge achieved what neither of the previous two had: complete cultural elimination alongside institutional collapse. 3 times across galactic history, the Jedi Order faced extinction. Each time, they rebuilt stronger in numbers but carried forward the same weaknesses that had destroyed them before. The lesson was never learned because there was no one left to teach it. The survivors who remained were too broken, too scattered, or too determined to forget. The galaxy always needed protectors, yet each time the Jedi rose to fill that role, the very qualities that made them guardians became the tools of their destruction: their philosophy, their trust, their dedication to preserving life above all else. History shows that the greatest threats to the Jedi never came from their enemies' strengths, but from their own inability to adapt when everything they believed in was used against them. Among those who exploited these weaknesses, 2 figures stand at the center of this history. To see how Revan transformed from Jedi hero to architect of corruption, from his early brilliance through the Mandalorian Wars, his fall to the dark side as Darth Revan, and his eventual redemption that still shaped the galaxy's future, watch the complete rise and fall of Darth Revan. And to understand how Palpatine spent decades manipulating the Republic, from his early political career on Naboo through his secret training under Darth Plagueis, his orchestration of the Clone Wars, and his transformation of the galaxy into his empire, watch the entire history of Palpatine next.